Sounds of love. Y'all know the sounds of love. You better sing that.
That was my song back in the day.
Alright, now that song has finished, we will get started because I always like to at least go through one song, and I think 6 minutes is long enough to get some of the folks in here. So anyone who joins us later, it's cool. Just know that again, I am going to be running this in our private Facebook group. I'm also running this on my Instagram, which is Coach K101. So if you don't catch it all, or you have to bounce out or whatever, it will always be on my IGTV. But it's nothing like live to get those questions answered right away. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Kanya, but everyone calls me Coach K. I am your certified clinical sexologist and master sexologist, aka a life, love, and intimacy coach, bringing you my weekly sex and relationship chat with a new topic every single week. And today's topic is I am not your ex. I am joined up here on the stage by Miss Brittany. She is the creator and founder of the Black Mama Group, a very positive and empowering group for Black women. And so welcome, and I appreciate you for being on this chat with me. So, if we think about, and I don't know how many people are in my Instagram land, and you kind of saw the graphic that I put up today. And what it shows is this young lady who's all curled up with her boo, and she says, oh, he loves me. You know, that's what she's thinking. And then the next two spaces, you kind of see her mind kind of wandering, and she's like, And you'll see that I have different things written on that, like self-sabotage, fear, trauma, distrust. And then in the next scene, it's her saying, well, you know, my ex did, ... And then the very last scene, you will see her saying, why do they always leave? Why do we consistently bring previous baggage, is what I call it, into current situations? That is what we're talking about tonight. We are talking about the fact that I am not your ex. What happened in a previous relationship is not always going to happen in a current one. And that is a huge disconnect and distrust that is created for multiple reasons. And so I listed 6 different reasons or categories as to what happens in relationships when we don't resolve and properly grieve a previous relationship, and then we jump into another. And so the first thing that I have on there, and I usually like to go through my list, and then we go back and we discuss it in detail. So the first thing I have on my list is fear. The next thing is trauma. Number 3, I have the feel of unworthiness. Number 4, I have distrust. Number 5, I have self-doubt. And then number 6, I have self-sabotage. These are 6 reasons / items that sometimes we take into almost every situation and relationship that we get in. And then we try to wonder, why is it they always leave? Why is it that it seems like everyone, like all men are the same or all women are the same? Well, at some point we have to figure out what that common denominator is. And if we are a part of every single one of those non-lasting and unhappy relationships, it is probably us. I do work with various clients in this field, mostly women, because this is something that we tend to do. Men do it too, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a man, so I don't always like to speak on that aspect unless I am actually dealing with a client and I can talk to what they would like to know. So let's talk about fear. If you've ever been in a relationship and you have been hurt, I would say 8 times out of 10, when you get into another relationship, you are going in with almost the expectation that something's going to happen. Whether it be, that person is going to cheat on us. Maybe you were in an abusive relationship and the fear is of abuse. That's a real thing and something that I would recommend definitely seeing a licensed therapist for, because you absolutely want to take care of that from the root forward. Or it's just the fear of getting close with someone. Fear will have you afraid of things that aren't even there. Like, you really start to create scenarios and situations in your mind that simply do not exist. And we have to get away from that. It's not fair to ourselves, number one, and it's definitely not fair to the other party. Because here's the thing. When you get into a new relationship, there are going to be things that are going to be extremely wonderful. This is probably why we got into the relationship. But there's also going to be things that will hurt you. And it is okay to be hurt by new things if it's not something that is detrimental or purposefully harmful to you, such as physical, mental, any type of abuse that's a no-go. That's something I would never ask you to step into. But it's okay to have a healthy fear for the unknown, but not to the point where you've created this entire scenario of how this is going to work out in your specific space and relationship. And again, everyone who is over there in Clubhouse land, if you want to be a part of interactive part of the conversation, definitely raise your hand and come on up and feel happy and free to speak, as well as anyone on Instagram. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw those in that Q&A spot. So we have to start facing face your fears. We have to start taking a step back, maybe even looking in the mirror and say, why am I so anxious? Have you ever been in a relationship and you're just tense all the time for no reason? Maybe your partner wants you to take you out for dinner and you're just like super nervous. And it's not the kind of, oh, I got goosebumps, chills, we're going out. It's truly, what's going to happen? You have this overwhelming just fear of something's going to happen. Maybe you're fearful that you're going to see an ex out. Well, you know what? It's okay. You moved on. It's perfectly okay. So we have to take a step back and we have to ask ourselves, what do we fear? Once we ask ourselves what it is that we fear, we need to ask ourselves, why do we fear? Once we understand why this is a fear, then we can start to move forward or work on moving forward from that fear so that we can get that out of what's out of our head, essentially. So number 2 is trauma. Having any kind of trauma in a previous relationship could potentially paint that person's face on every single person that you meet moving forward. That is a very, very dangerous place to be. Now, trauma is not always being hit or, it could have been maybe you and that person, suffered a miscarriage together. That's a trauma that you have endured. And so when you maybe go into a next relationship and maybe it turns out to be a long-term relationship, now you're like, I suffered through this trauma and here comes that fear. So you're withholding not wanting to have children because you've been through the trauma of a miscarriage with someone else. And so you're bringing that trauma into this new relationship and you're now hesitant about doing things that this new partner may want to do with you. Again, it's not fair to you and it's definitely not fair to the other party. What I will say is in any of these instances, it is definitely okay to have that conversation with your partner, not so much in depth that you're beating it over their head and every time something happens, you bring it up, but to the point where they understand the baseline of where you're coming from and that they're open to either work with you to get through it, or they make the conscious decision not to be there. If you have suffered any type of trauma in a previous relationship, I encourage you to please seek professional guidance and therapy so that you are not repeating that trauma, not just in a romantic relationship. Many times our traumas and our fears are spewed amongst every aspect of our life. So please make sure that if there is a trauma that you have suffered, that you do seek professional help, and also communicate that to your new partner so that they have a baseline and understanding of how you feel or why you have this hesitance. And they are making a conscious decision to stay and work with you through it, or saying, you know what, this is too much for me to handle, and they don't. So the next one, which is number 3, is that feeling of unworthiness. This is something that both men and women absolutely go through on a everyday basis. It could be maybe no one told you while you were growing up that you're an amazing person, you can do great things. Maybe no one breathed any type of love or positivity into you, that you understood your worth. And usually this does start at a very young age, and we kind of grew up with that. So, or it could have been the relationship that you were in. You could have been, top of the top, best person that top of your game. And then you got into a relationship with someone that beat you back so bad in your mind that they start to make you feel unworthy of love. Taking the feeling of unworthiness into the next relationship will probably 98.9% of the time ruin it off the gate. I don't even know if that's something that I would say your partner will be open to trying to quote unquote fix, because undoing the feeling of unworthiness is truly a rigorous internal work that you have to do with yourself. It won't be easy for an external party to make you feel worthy of yourself once that is taken from you. That's some internal work. I would say if that is the case, and if that is something that you recognize, I would recommend you not get into another relationship until you start to do the work on yourself. That is extremely important. If you get a superficial feel of worthiness by just accepting someone saying, babe, you're worthy, you're awesome, you're great. When you go to bed at night, or when you're alone, or if you just get inside your own head, that will go away. Worthiness has to start from the inside out. There is not going to be a person that can give that to you. And it's probably because you didn't have a strong sense of that worth when you got into that relationship, if someone was able to pull that away from you. So really look into that one. That unworthiness can be damaging and very depressive almost. It can lead you into that realm. So do some self-work on that. And yes, that is definitely something that I can help you work on with that unworthiness. So distrust, number 4. That is probably a huge deal breaker. If there is a distrust of whatever that has happened in a previous relationship, that is another one that you will paint that person's face on everyone you meet. You won't just paint that face on everyone you meet in a romantic setting. You will paint that face on everyone you meet in every setting. in your workplace, sometimes even in your children if you have them, in your friendships. When trust is broken or someone has a distrust spirit in themselves, you won't be able to trust just about anything. And at that point, you become extremely defensive. If you ever think about a time where you just did not trust someone, really think about that. Everything that person said to you, you looked at it as an attack. And you tried to figure out, well, why is that person coming for me? When it's very possible that they were not. They were just having a conversation with you, but you don't trust. Distrust, just like unworthiness, is a trait and something that you have to work on inside of you with someone who is one of probably the most honest people that you can ever be around. So you need to start that relationship with you first. And then you need to maybe partner with, and it could be somebody in your family, someone who you know who's always been dependable. Because I can tell you, when you're working to undo distrust, any type of slip up will set you back. So if you do choose to get into a relationship, I would say on the front end, letting that other person know, I'm going to tell you up front, I had this situation happen where trust was broken. And so I don't easily trust. And again, that gives the other party the option to either say, this is something that I can work with because I care about you enough and I really want to work with it, or they have the conscious decision to walk away. But what that other party needs to understand, and this is for you too, if someone comes to you with it, is in order to reestablish and rebuild trust, you have to be so much a person of your word that it's almost anal retentive. So if you say to your partner, we're going to dinner at 7:00, and you know that you're running late at work, you need to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, we were going to dinner at 7:00. It is 6:45. I'm still at the office. I'm going to be approximately 30 minutes late. What is that called? Communication. Just that easy. That's how you start to rebuild trust that has been broken, especially when you're bringing another, somebody's distrust into this current relationship. So it is extremely important on both parties and both ends that the trust bond is built on all things trust and communication. Communication, and communication. So number 5 was self-doubt. Self-doubt is along the same lines as unworthiness, but it can become almost an annoyance when it comes to self-doubt. So if someone has, in a previous relationship, made you feel like everything you do is just horrible, your food was horrible, the way you folded the clothes was horrible, you can't even close the car door right, you start to doubt everything that you do, to the point where now you bring this into this new relationship, and every 5 minutes you're asking your partner, hey, I was thinking about getting my nails painted. Should I get red or should I get blue? They may say, I don't care. So now, it's like, well, I was thinking about putting this outfit on. Do you think I should wear this or wear that? Well, I was going to fold the laundry. Do you think I should fold the laundry like this or like that? Well, I need to get my oil changed. Should I go here or go there? So at some point, that self-doubt becomes an annoyance to the next party. And so you have to work on that for yourself, which means you have to start, and we go back to that distrust, you have to start trusting yourself enough to understand that you can make good decisions for yourself. Because if you are in a relationship, it should be for yourself first and the pick of the other party second. That's number 1. So you have to be at a point where your doubt does not become an annoyance to someone else because someone else made you feel so doubtful. And then the last thing is self-sabotage. That's a doozy. And I believe that there are many people who are under the sound of my voice right now that can think of a time where they have truly self-sabotaged themselves out of a relationship simply based on, what is that? Fear of what has happened to them in a previous relationship. Self-sabotage is the easiest way to completely ruin any relationship, friendships, bonds with your family, especially relationships with your families. They said that the tongue is a powerful sword. We use that and we self-sabotage ourselves with it on a routine basis. Sometimes we've been in situations that we just assume that every situation is going to be the same. So we take whatever happened in that previous relationship, we apply it into everything. And so we self-sabotage ourselves because we make assumptions on what's going to happen. Well, I'm going to assume that we made plans to go somewhere, but you're going to cancel them at the last minute. And so before you can do it, I'm going to ruin this whole dinner. Or I'm going to ruin out all of our plans. You self-sabotage yourself. Self-sabotage is almost a complete umbrella over top of all of the previous 5 that we talked about tonight. And it's so easy to do. And a lot of times it comes from when we were younger. Many of these things, when it comes to us taking old baggage into new relationships, comes from the way we grew up and what we were taught and what we saw that we learned unconsciously that we may not agree with, but it's in us. And so this is what we do. Just like in families, they call that generational curse. It's relationship curses that you decide to carry along with you in your relationships. And that's something that I am going to encourage everyone to look inside of you and work on those things. These are things that you have to be willing to recognize. The 3 things that I talk about in the 4-part webinar series that I have, which is totally free. If anybody wants that link, just DM me and I'll send it to you, which is called The Power of You, is that we need to recognize, we need to acknowledge, and then we need to accept whatever it is that the behavior that we are displaying. Once you accept, and acceptance does not mean condoning. I need you guys to understand that. Just because you accept something does not mean you condone it. But when you're able to accept a behavior, you're able to actually overcome that behavior because you know that you've recognized, you've accepted, and now you recognize, you acknowledge, you accept it. So now you can work on it because you believe it. Until you accept it, you don't believe it. And typically, we don't work on things that we don't believe in. Hence why I said and named this, I am not your ex. If you haven't been in a meaningful relationship, or if you were in a relationship that was crap, you don't believe in having successful relationships moving forward, do you? No, you don't. So if you find yourself, like I said at the top of this, in a cycle of the same types of relationships, it may not be abusive, it may not end all the same way, but they do end, then at some point you have to stop. You have to recognize what this behavior is. You have to acknowledge it, and then you have to accept it, and then you need to work on it with yourself first. It is something that you have to work on with you. And does that mean all the time that you have to step away from a relationship? Not always. Do I think it is a good idea that you leave the relationship to work on it? I absolutely do. If you've been in a long-term relationship already and you want to kind of work on it, make sure that that communication is strong enough, because here's the thing. You could be in a 10-year relationship right now as we speak, and you could still be looking at your partner and thinking about something that an ex did to you, or thinking of a characteristic that this new person has that that ex had. And you've been just holding on to that one thing in the back of your mind. While you think it's just, in the back of my mind, it is actually festering in everything you say and everything you do. And it becomes your relationship. And then when you start to do the work and you kind of sit back, take a bird's eye view of that relationship. Does it look like, oh my gosh, we're going nowhere? It's been 10 years. I thought it was great. But could it be that I've been spewing some old crap, or I've painted your face into my ex's face and I've been treating you like that? So if you painted your ex's face on your current person's face, you've been treating them the same way of that old relationship. But the reason why it's worse, especially if you've been done wrong, is because you're walking into it on defense. So you're not giving your new partner the opportunity to truly know you, to give you love you deserve, to work on how to make things better, because you are walking into that with armor on. And we have to be extremely careful with that. And so I'm just going to reset the room really quickly for everyone that just joined. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Coach K. I am your certified clinical sexologist and master sexologist, aka your life, love, and intimacy coach. We are on our weekly sex and relationship chat. Today we are talking about I am not your ex. I just went over 6 things that we typically do or act out that will ruin relationships that we have moving forward when we bring old baggage into it. Anyone who is over here on Clubhouse, if you would like to come up and be an interactive part of the conversation, please feel free to raise your hand and come on up. Just know that this is also streaming in a private Facebook group as well as on my Instagram. If you would prefer to not have your name mentioned, please make sure you let me know that. Or if you don't want your voice on there, you let me know and I will take the other 2 away while you speak. So we were just on this, and I think everyone's been in here pretty much long enough to know where we were just kind of talking about the overall atmosphere of when we take what has happened in previous relationships and we bring them forward, and how it honestly doesn't just affect our romantic relationships, but it also affects all relationships. So if you've ever been at work and or you work somewhere and you just hate it, like you just hate everything about it, you wake up, you really have to contemplate your life. You walk in there, you hate, and you can't figure it out. Well, let's think about it. Did I hate my previous job? And am I bringing some of that old baggage and hate from that into this? Or is it something that in my relationship that I'm bringing into this? Because that's the thing. Here's the crazy thing. Our relationships and how, honestly, sex and sexuality, home life, work life, all of that is a meshed ball. So if there is something that was happening in a previous romantic relationship and you just so happen to get a new job, you're also going to bring all of that mess from that relationship into your new job. So that any and all relationships that you build with coworkers, with your boss, is going to be reflective of those negative connotations that you had from that relationship. So this is why I genuinely encourage, and I will say to you, why I am huge on healing yourself, doing the self-work for you before you go into anything new. And being alone. Take time for you. If you know that you were in some murky waters in a relationship, you got out of it, or if you know you were in some murky waters at a job. And I know, the first thing people are going to say, I got to work, got to make that money. And I totally understand that. But you know what? Sometimes your self-worth, your sanity, and your peace is a little bit more than the money that you have to make. So if that means, and give yourself a time limit. Maybe for the next 2 weeks, I'll do my unemployment thing so that I can decompress from that job before I walk into this new one. Because just like a romantic relationship, your job is like your ex. And if you don't take the time to decompress yourself, you're going to bring all of that mess into this new job, which is another type of relationship. Right? And that's not something that we want to do. And here's a more sadder one. We have to be careful with how we do this in our family relationships. And especially with our children. Many times when we have not so pleasant relationships with one child, it is sometimes possible that we take that and we portray it onto all the children. And then we also kind of hold a grudge into it. But I want you to think of it the same way as you would in an actual romantic relationship, in that you have to be able to put a period mark on that specific situation, sit back, get a bird's eye view of it, recognize, acknowledge, and accept whatever it is that happened so that you can work on it moving forward with a clean slate. And you're not taking whatever it is, that mesh ball of anger or anguish or upset, and most of the time it's hurt. I will say that that's a big one. Hurt what caused you to hold on to a lot of things and continue to bring it over and over and over. But we need to do that so that we don't spew this and this mess on our children. Because then you have one that you were upset with that thinks that you hate them for life. Then you have this other one that's like, well, I'm not going to get close to you because I don't want you to, lash out at me like you lash out at so-and-so. So we have to do that self-work in order for us to be clean slated for any new relationship that we get into, whether it be family, romantic, career. We have to do that self-work. I am huge on self-work. If anyone is, ladies, if you're listening, I encourage you to go and check out the Own Your Ish Sis boot camp. That boot camp is 5 weeks of self-work. It is work that you do for yourself that places you first. The reason why that matters, especially on this topic of I'm not your ex, is when you place yourself first in any relationship, then you don't bring the things that are behind you moving forward, because you're the first person in line. Usually, if you're someone who brings mess from previous going forward, it's because you've put yourself in the back of the line where you're watching all of this foolery and you're just taking it and you're moving it forward. So when we learn how to clear our path, put us first, then we don't take a look or bring anything back there with us going forward. This is why I created that boot camp, because it is important to me that you put you first. So I'm going to not talk you guys' head off. Is there anyone that has any questions or want to add to the conversation? Please speak now, because I would love to hear from you. And if there's any questions that you may have on this or kind of anything in the realm of life, love, intimacy, sex, and relationships, let me know, because I'm more than happy to talk with you about it. Hey, Amani Feast Realty. All right, I don't mind that you guys are silent. I appreciate you listening to me, honestly. Oh, we got somebody that's going to come on up. Welcome up. Thank you. How can I help you? Hey.
Good. I appreciate you doing this. I swear to God, I'm sitting here and I'm like, this girl is talking straight to me. She called me out on all my things. So I really appreciate it. Just as you're talking and mentioning like all these different points, I'm like, oh yeah, I got a little bit of that. Yep, that sounds like me. So just trying to, I don't know, just learn a little bit more on how to go forward, I guess, in my current, marriage, and how to not bring any of that sort of stuff forward. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I definitely appreciate you being here. I truly believe that whenever I feel something on my heart to speak about, and I have topics that are planned out through the beginning of March, and these are topics that we go through every day, and many times we sit and we, quote unquote, suffer in silence. We get so frustrated with what's going on that we don't even know where to start to even get any type of guidance. And this example that I have is, literally last Monday, and the reason why I had to push this week back to this to today is because I had raw sewage that was pouring into my home. And I wanted to panic. But I had to remember what we just talked about is because I always put me first, I had to stop. And I had to tell my brain, get itself together, because me panicking would not remember that I can call the city because I know that they were doing work around the area. Or that I can call a 24-hour plumber and get it done. And by Wednesday, yes, it was done. Actually, by Thursday, it was all done. But that comes with putting in the work and the time to really work on yourself. And a lot of times when we get into relationships, what do? Automatically, what do? Anybody want to guess? What do we do when we get in relationships?
Stop focusing on ourselves.
Bam! We stop.
Everyone except ourselves.
Yes, we do. We immediately place ourselves in the second seat. We ride shotgun. We let somebody take control. Normally, it's because we just want to be loved. And typically, when we put ourselves second, and we end up in that kind of tumultuous relationship, a weird ass relationship. I'll just say weird because some of them are great, but they're still weird. And you're like, I don't know if I'm happy. I'm kind of happy. It's because we don't know how to love us first anymore, or we didn't walk into it loving us first. And so we crave that external love so much that we accept it however it comes. And then when it no longer works for us, or it no longer works for that other person, yep, lay DT, yes, we're focused on other people. When it no longer works for us, or it no longer boosts our head up and makes us feel all really frilly, then we think that the other person is broken. And so we ready to move on. They're not doing it for us. Well, it should never be another person that, quote unquote, makes you happy. If you don't make you happy first, everywhere you go, you will be unhappy. And I'm going to put my stamp on that one. Period. I tell my husband all the time. He will tell you in a heartbeat, that he will profess his love upside down, backwards. I put you first, and I have to correct him. No, sir, I need you to put you first. There's no way that you can give me the kind of love that you're telling me you're giving me until you love you that much first. And we work on that all the time because I receive his love and it feels amazing. So once he got to the point where he loved himself, like uber loved himself, that intensity of how he felt about me, I felt it get stronger. And he didn't always understand that he couldn't make me happy. I was just happy to be in his presence because I make me happy. And now he understands that. I make me happy. I just love to death being in his presence, just being around him fuels me. But that's something that once you do that internal work, you will understand. And that is what my boot camp is all about. Even as a mom of 5, all 5 of mine understand. I come first because if I'm no good, then I'm no good for them. And I also need for them to understand that I don't need them to go out into the world and get their feelings hurt because I kept telling them that they were the best and they can get away with anything and they're amazing and somebody's not going to hurt them. I'm perfectly okay with letting them know, I think you're great at this, but you need to work on XYZ to make it so that other people understand your greatness. And welcome up to the stage. Let us know how we can talk with you today.
Hey, I'm Willetta, but everybody calls me Willie.
Hey, Miss Willie.
But, hey, so I've been in a couple of your rooms, and they've been awesome. But I think my biggest struggle is I am now mom to a 2-year-old who is, she's 2.5, and she's still breastfeeding. And it's kind of off topic, but she's still breastfeeding, and it's just the intimate time with my husband that is awkward because she breastfeeds to go to sleep. So in the morning time, she wants to when she wakes up. So I do put myself aside, my husband aside, everybody stops so that I can get her up, because if she wakes up ill or upset or feisty, the whole atmosphere just changes. And then I put her to sleep. And if she wakes up, if I put her to bed at 9 and she wakes up at 9:30, she wants the breast, I'm rushing to her to give her the breast. So me and my husband's intimate time is very awkward. He's a fireman and he's in the military, so our time together is limited many days. So just having that me time is non-existent. If I can get a 10-minute Epsom salt bath with a glass of wine while she's taking a nap, it's like gold to me. That, like, I would trade that for $1,000 today, because that's just the time where I can gather my mind. And then when he when he comes and he wants to be relaxed or intimate or whatever, and I'm just so awkward. It's just awkward for us because the whole time I'm trying to get in the mode of being with him. Mm-hmm. It's, what if Zoe wakes up? What if she wakes up? She's going to want tit, so it's just an awkward feeling. And I heard you say you had 5 kids, so I'm sure you've been here many times, but it's just balancing that and wanting to have more children, and he wanted to have more children, but now he's nervous because he's like, I can't do this again. Like, I want you, I want my wife. And we hang out, we talk, we sit on the couch, we hang, we'll kiss, we'll cuddle, we'll do all those things. But when it's time to be intimate, it's like right when I try to get into the mode of wanting to be with him, I'm afraid she's gonna wake up. And then he's like, I'm gonna be blunt. Like, he's like, I don't want to taste your milk. Like, that's awkward for me to taste your milk if I'm trying to be intimate with you. And Zoe wakes up and then she's on it. So, like, he takes from her. He feels awkward if he takes from her, so it makes us not feel sexy anymore, if that makes any sense to anybody.
It does.
So it's a weird feeling, and I wanted to know more about the boot camp. I wasn't sure. I came in kind of late, I think, when you were talking about the boot camp, and I was still in and out because I was still in with her, trying to get dinner ready and everybody together here. So I was in and out on what you were talking about your boot camp was, but that's just a little story. Help! Exclamation point.
Can I reply to her, Coach?
Yeah, you can.
I just want to say, Willetta, that I understand because I was going through the same thing. I just stopped breastfeeding last year, probably in September. I went 10 months, and It was hard to say the least. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people are like pro breastfeeding, and I get it. I'm pro breastfeeding as well, but I'm not gonna lie. I really did not enjoy it just because of the lack of intimacy between me and my husband, and not being able to just use my body the way I normally would. It's, not even being able to eat what I wanted to eat, drink what I wanted to drink. Get myself in the mood. Like it was very tedious. And when it came to being in the bedroom, you know, when you start like getting intimate, and I don't know, like I guess the sensation or your hormones, like you will release milk, and that's just like it was just ruin the whole moment. And coach, I think I was watching you today, was it? And you was like, if something happens like in the middle of intimacy, and you see something, you like, did I remember? You was like, if I see something, if I think about my laundry or something like that, and she was like, then all of a sudden the juices just stop flowing. Like that's exactly how it.
Yeah. So we did talk, and I appreciate that, Brittany, especially as a very recently weaned mother. I'm also a breastfeeding counselor and certified doula. So I totally understand exactly where you're coming from. And yes, that can be difficult. A couple weeks ago, I did a talk, and I forgot exactly what the name of it was. But one of the things that I talked about, and this is, a little harsh, but a little bit of reality, is as parents, we have to ask ourselves, do our children need us as much as we want to be needed? And so for you, I would just say, let's start practicing that in our minds just a little bit. Because believe it or not, that 2-year-old, that 2.5-year-old, yes, they're dependent, but they're extremely independent as well. And so it's hard for us as parents to kind of give them that independence. And yes, as a breastfeeding mother, it is a different ball game because that bond is different. But you have to be okay with starting to set some boundaries for her to understand. Because if we think about it, you typically can tell a child, I'm going to say this, I'd say maybe at least 5 to 10 times. If you redirect them 5 to 10 times and you don't waver in that, they typically will follow that directive. And so if you know that you put baby girl down and it is almost daddy time, then you need to put yourself in a routine that gives yourself 15 to 20 minutes in between. I know that I put my baby down at 9 o'clock. Husband knows that his time does not start until at least 9:30. And so for 30 minutes, you can put yourself in me mode, which means I am not breastfeeding mom and I am not sexy wife right now. But I am gearing towards leaving one and entering another. And so by you giving yourself that full transmission time, I know I'm looking for the right word, then you won't be thinking about what happened at 9 o'clock when you put her down, because you have to leave that mode. And it's almost a self-sabotaging fear that we kind of put ourselves in when we do that. And it's okay to communicate that with your husband and let him know, hey, this is something I want to work on. But I need you to work with me on that. I don't need you to tell me that you don't want to taste this milk, because this is how I nourish our child. And it discourages me when you say that to me. I need you to be okay with, if we are intimate and it does drip down a little bit, that you just enjoy it, because that's still a part of our intimate time. But while I work on using this transfer of me being breastfeeding mom into sexy wife, I need you to just work with me so that you don't mention something that triggers me to think about what my baby girl may do and waking up. And I hope all of this is making sense to you, what I'm saying. But that's
It is. It
oh,
is. Because
okay.
that's exactly what it is. It's that transforming, like, for me, from mom to wife. And I can do it any other time. If she's awake and she's playing, and it's even weird for me, like, if the camera's on, like, I feel like I could be more intimate with him if I could see her on the camera just playing in her room. Like, if she's just playing and she's good and she's awake and she's just had it, the tit or whatever, and she's playing, like, I feel like I'm more sexy. But for him, his mindset is, okay, I'm here, this is our time, but you're looking at the camera. To me, I'm still in sexy mode. But for him is, I see my daughter on the camera, I don't want to see that.
Right.
So we're kind of like offset at 10. Like, he's on when she's asleep. I'm an alert when she's asleep, because I'm like, is she breathing? Is she good? And then when she's awake and I see her fine and she's playing, he's on daddy mode. Like, no, she's playing, but what if she touched the plug? What if she touched the thing? So it's hard for us sometimes to get on the one accord. And honestly, I can't sit here and say that I'm not to blame at some, because he, he's in the military and he's a fireman. When he, they work 24-hour shifts. So when he's away, like, I do let her fall asleep in our room, in our bed. And so he knows, but I've convinced him enough to, she falls asleep in the bed when you're not here, because, I don't sleep by myself, and we just fall asleep together. And then, when you come home, I just put her in her bed. She's good, like, she's fine. Or sometimes she'll sleep on the sofa downstairs, and we have the sectional, and we're laying on the other side, and we try to hug or kiss or whatever. And then I'm peeping my eye out. I don't think he sees it, but he does. Like, why are your eyes open?
Yeah.
Like, stop looking.
And he definitely notices that. But this is what I want to do for you. I want to connect with you on IG, so me and you can set up a Zoom call to go further into it. I will let you know about that boot camp as well. But if you just shoot me something over my DM for IG, so we can kind of go into that realm, because I definitely, outside of that one exercise I want you to put in place for sure. But I don't want us to get too far off topic, because we only have about 12 minutes here. 2 minutes here, a lot. But I definitely want to talk with you further and give you even more exercises that you can try.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry.
No, you are fine. You are fine. That is a good question.
I'm going to go on IG now. Thank y'all so much. And Brittany too, thank you.
You are just fine. But
no problem.
Really quickly, just about that boot camp. The boot camp is called the Own Your Ish Sis Boot Camp. It's 5 weeks of you learning how to unapologetically teach others how to treat you, including people that you're currently with. And for you, that little 2.5-year-old is included, because this is something that I work with my children, is being able to set positive boundaries that places you in the forefront of everything. And it's each module we talk about something different. So module 1 is communication. Module 2 is establishing you. Module 3 is getting rid of the baggage, aka the noise, which we're talking about today. Module 4 is finding your voice. And then module 5 is relationship building or foundation. And that's kind of all of what we're talking about today. And being able to work on those things for self will dramatically change your relationship. And I can assure you that by the second week of the boot camp, you will notice a change in difference. It gets harder before it gets easier, because you are making a transfer of power from you being number 2, 3, or 4 to number 1. And so before we run out of time, Miss Amber, you did come up, and I want to make sure that we are able to hear from you and how you would like to talk to us.
Hey, I actually just wanted to, like, when she was talking, I just wanted to answer her question to say it is about, like, transitioning into, like, a different mode, because I went through the same thing with breastfeeding my son. But I am going to look at your boot camp, because, as Jacqueline said, you definitely told me about myself today, and I needed to hear it. Because I self-sabotage and I self-doubt, and I definitely pass my trauma around. And I just thank you for doing this, because I definitely needed to hear all of it.
I appreciate all of you so much and more than you will ever know. The reason that I went into this sexuality coaching practice is because I was that woman at the age of 20. Fortunate for me, I was able to get all of this early, and I'm able to package it up in 5 weeks. And I want to be that resource that I didn't have growing up for as many women as I can be. And that's why I do it, is because I genuinely care about how people are and what we transfer on to other people, because we do. It's just like when you cut your finger, you immediately want to shake it. Well, when you shake it, you spew blood everywhere. That's kind of what we do with ourselves. But I want to be that person that's going to show you how to heal that wound so that we don't shake our blood everywhere. So I so appreciate you guys for being here. Tomorrow, I do have a special night. I will be talking to the beautiful and amazing Dr. Rachel Ross. She will be here talking about her becoming a certified sexologist in her Dr. Rachel's Institute. So if you're interested in that, that is tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time right here on Clubhouse. It will not be on IG or Facebook. And then next week's Sex and Relationship Chat, that will be right here at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our topic is going to be, this is something that I had to live through. I kept my child, you left, and we are good. So we are going to be talking about the single parent life, not just single mom life, because we have single dads out there, and how we still can move forward and how we can even have meaningful relationships with other people after that fact and not staying in unhealthy relationships. So again, I appreciate you guys for joining me. I will see you either tomorrow and next week, or either or. And for some of y'all, I'll see you tomorrow morning doing the Breakfast Club with Miss Brittany. And y'all have a great evening.
See you there, ladies.
All right.
Thank y'all. Good night.
Good night. And good night to you guys out here in IG and Facebook world. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great evening.